How are you?
Hola, hola.
Mhm.
Mm,
How are you? I hope you will be fine.
a ver, no sé quién estaba hablando ahorita, si Daniel o Alexander, pero lo oía muy grave.
All right. I was my. I'm still the boss, or yeah, I can hear. I can be heard normally for you, or you off
Yes, yes, yes,
for
I
the
can hear
rest.
you. I can hear you, but your voice sound like too deep, like over bass. I don't know if you're using your cell phone's camera.
No, I using the hands free.
Sorry, your cell phone microphone.
Yeah, I
Maybe,
think
maybe,
it's
maybe.
I think it's because of the headphones.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because you sound like with a lot of bass and your voice, but I can understand still.
Mm, but for me, it's important to know if this free could work because I record my voice as with another applications, and I don't know the final result, but I'll try. I'll change for another hands free, or even no, even I can use only the microphone solo.
Okay.
Just wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. 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 Very good. Well.
Way or I change.
Perfecto. Ya te escucho. Excelente. Thanks.
Oh, that's
Very much.
way better. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand now everything you said. Perfect. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. I want you to. Well, I'm going to start in English. Voy a empezar en inglés. Si alguien no entiende lo que voy a decir, por favor, pregúntenme. ¿Va? Okay, I'm going to tell you something right now. I was in a session with the new students from the university, and I had to do this presentation about why it's important to learn English. And I was like, okay, for starters, why should I be explaining this? Why it's important to learn English? And I want you, my dear students, to tell me why it's important to learn English. It could be for you, it could be for a wider perspective, but I want you to tell me why do you think it's important? Or you can tell me, no, you're crazy, it's not. It's not important to learn English. But I want to know what do you think. Yes, Alexander, please.
Okay. Well, that's a great question, isn't it? Um, well, I would say, and I don't know how polemic this could be. My answer could be. I don't think it is polemic at all, right? But I would say that just as in ancient times, Latin was the language, right? Um, English is language now, if you know what I mean. So it is like well, there was a time, I don't know if they still refer to English as such, but there was a time which they said that English is like the universal language, right? Global language, if you want to put it like that. So it's like, well, I believe there was a time, I don't know, back in the 50s or 20s, something like that, that they were thinking about a universal language, a language that everyone could learn, that could be an easy language that everyone in every other country whose native languages well, we all have different languages around the world, so they wanted to create a universal language that would be easier for or easy for everyone to learn, right? And that's when they created, or someone created Esperanto. I don't know if you've heard about it. It is an artificial language that they yeah, created like with the purpose of yeah, using it as a global language. It's very simple, to be honest. That language, I don't know Esperanto, but yeah, it's very easy. But it didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't organic and all that. So I think that's why, as you know, the politic um, and cultural power was in the United States. Um, I think that's the reason why we should learn English because it's the language that we use at a global level. Either well, it doesn't matter if we like it or not. That's how it is, right? I mean, it could be German, it could be French, but if it's the most speaking, the language that is most spoken in the world, I think if you want to get in there and you know um, to be updated, to move around around in this world, this globalized world, you have to learn English. And yeah, well, there was something else that I wanted to say, but I just forgot. But yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. Actually, I just wrote a little bit earlier that you mentioned, is Esperanto. Um, se los digo en español, ¿esto han escuchado hablar del Esperanto? Era un idioma que, y como decía Alexander, en los 50 se intentó hacer un idioma universal y empezaron varios lingüistas y fanáticos de los lenguajes a crear este idioma con la intención de hacer un idioma universal. Y es obvio que no funcionó. Just a little thing, during the 40s, what you mentioned, Alexander, during the mid late 40s, we were so close to learn not English, but German. That was going to be the universal language at that time.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Daniel, yes.
Okay, in my case, I know about Esperanto because my father died in the 80s. He spoke a little about Esperanto and he led to learn a little Spanish. But well, I always want to speak English since I was a kid because I know that people that are English speaker could have better jobs and better opportunities. And because when I was kid, my main goal was to become scientific or even to become a great politician or something like that. Along the time, I changed to even become a rock star, but I failed. Indeed, I reckon to have failed to become a rock star. But in any other any kind of situations, I imagined myself talking in English and given some or driving even conferences or any kind of my performance in English, indeed, along to Spanish, along to Portuguese, because my mother speaks Portuguese, not at full Portuguesian, because or for as a Brazilian, because my mom is Mexican too, but she worked in the Brazilian embassy many years. But in her case, she was hairdresser, and I always learned another kind of languages as the minimum aspects. Because, for example, I studied Nahuatl when I was 8 years old, and Nahuatl, classical Nahuatl, or it's called Tecpilactoli. Later on, I will talk about. And I always think that there will be at least three categories that human beings we can develop to get successful or most economical successful. Meanwhile, meanwhile, we are poor. In my case, I was in some of the poorest states of the economic classes. The first way to achieve successful is to a great knowing in mathematics and physics and all the hard science. The second way to achieve it could be in use of English or English or another kind of lingua franca, but it depends the place where we are talking about because English, for example, in Midwest is not the main language. It's Arabic and it's Arabic. And but in West is the best language to talk. Except, for example, here in Mexico, we are the biggest population talking Spanish, and some of them are not interested to talk English because they say, "Oh, all the Americans still the half of our territory," for example, and some things like that that we are culturally opposed to learn English. And the third way to achieve successful being poor, for example, is for sports. But in my case, I wasn't be enough. I haven't been enough to be on sports. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta a sacar? ¿Alguna palabra que se haya dicho? ¿Algo de vocabulario? ¿Todo bien? ¿Vamos bien? Ok, tomaré el silencio como así. Catherine, I want to hear your opinion.
Hi, teacher. I very much agree with the first classmate said. I didn't know about that language that called Esperanto. I never heard of it. I was interested to learn that, and for me is of course is the universal language, but also open you a lot of doors, making friends with different cultures or traveling, uh, of course jobs. It gives you a lot of skills because a lot of people don't have the ability, don't have the opportunity, or they are just lazy and they don't want to learn another language. So the person who have two language or more have more chances to have more job opportunities or travel without a lot of barriers or be more independent, right? Because you can be easily uh, get I don't know how to say the word enredado if you have a translator or if you depend on somebody else for the traveling or for work. Entanglement. Entangle. So you can be entangled by somebody else on his favor if you don't know what they are talking about. So there has so many advantages for you to understand and be able to communicate. In my case, I can compare what is being here in Mexico and being in Costa Rica. At least at here in Yucatan, I'm not an expert. I not know all of the country, but I see it is very low the people who speak in English. At least at here, maybe in Cancun or near uh, that area, I saw a lot of people who speak English very well. So the people who don't, at least the gringos or the people who don't speak Spanish, who travel here in Mexico, they struggle a lot because they don't speak nothing. And I don't know if they should. At least the person who have the tourism area. I think they need to, but the rest don't. And in Costa Rica, everybody speak or at least try to with signs or whatever they made up. They made up in English. They try to communicate whatever they want because we are like very, como se dice, bombetas. I don't know how to say that in English. But here I saw a lot of people get afraid and be like, I don't want to say nothing because I don't understand and get away, right? Be like more close and that part. And that's like the things I see in my opinion. But of course it will depend of the area because in Cancun and Tulum and all these places the English is very good and there's a lot of people who speak of that.
Yeah, that's one good reason. Being able to communicate with people, with foreign people, especially when they travel to your country or to your hometown. It's interesting. Um, I'm not going to give you this like an open question, but Catherine, do you think that this could be like this, like an example or a demonstration of Latin American hospitality? Because you don't see a lot of people from the United States trying to learn Spanish when they come to Mexico. I have recently seen that a lot of people from the United States travel to Japan without knowing that almost nobody speaks English there, and they did not any efforts to learn Japanese. It could be a manifestation, a demonstration of Latin American hospitality. I think it could be. Yes, Catherine.
I think it's a little bit of that and also the culture. At least in Costa Rica, we have that culture where we are very soft in our character and the people don't fight, don't confront. So if they come with, I mean, with money, they do whatever you want because they have money. Here in Mexico, they have pride. So it's my land, you speak my language. That's the way I see it, right? And I think it's the right. It should be the way, right? And you need at least make an effort if you are gonna be the travel and learn the basics of the language you are gonna go because it's the lack of respect, expecting that everybody's going to understand you, and it's a lack of respect to expect that everybody um, like uh, serve of you because you are a foreigner or you're from another country. That's not the way it is. But I have to say that in Costa Rica, that's the way it works. Here in Mexico, I think they have more pride on who they are, what this language is, and if you want to talk to me, make a little effort to understand me because I don't have to understand you. That's the way I see it.
My experience is a little bit different. You know, I've seen a number of people, especially in Mexico City subway, trying to communicate with English-speaking people, despite the fact that they probably don't have any certifications or maybe don't remember well what they learned in school. They make the effort. It could depend on the situation. It could depend on a number of factors, but in the end, I think that we are proud. Yes, there is another component in Latin American culture, and that's why migration is so important. We can talk about this in a moment. Yes, Alexander. And after Alexander, I want to listen to uh, Nicole, Jorge, and Jesus. So, Alexander, please.
Yeah. So yeah, about people. I don't know. Well, I think people should at least learn the basics when going to a country that speaks a different language than their own, right? I think it's a matter of common sense, basically, because for yes, especially Anglo-speaking people, they tend to overlook this. They to They don't think that's important because, yeah, well, because we already spoke about that. The English is like the universal language, so they assume most people speak the language where they go, and some of them don't even know which language uh, they speak in the country where they're going to, right? For example, it's very common to find people from the United States. I interact a lot with people native from the States and Canada, and it's common to find people that don't know what's the native language from some countries from Latin America. They might think that in Colombia people speak French or Portuguese, or that in Brazil people speak Spanish. So yeah, that's a cultural thing there. I believe that's an issue or something that might be an issue. But yeah, I believe people should at least learn the basics when they go to a different country. And about people not you know, from a place and way they see a foreigner that speaks a different language. I think that, yeah, what Catherine said. I also said that I would also say that that's relative, as our teacher said. It depends on the situation. I don't know. Maybe if it's, you know, something a job related matter, or if it's a, yeah, I don't know, a tourist going to a restaurant. Yeah, I mean the thing, it's different really. And also about something about what Catherine said that also resonated with me is, well, she said that yeah, we don't have, I mean, some people want to learn English just because, yeah, it's a universal language, or because it might give them more or better job opportunities, right? Or things like that. But I think there's more to it. Learning a new language really opens up a whole world of possibilities. It really raises your cultural level, and there's information that you won't find in Spanish, or you will find very little information about any specific topic that you will, yeah, and you about that same topic you could find full encyclopedias in English, right? Really, right? And forums and YouTube channels, and yeah, I would say 70% of the information in the internet is in English, right? So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Claro que sí, Jorge Luis. La pregunta empezó cuando, perdón por la redundancia, cuando les pregunté por qué creían que era importante aprender inglés, o si creían que era importante aprender o hablar inglés. Vamos a analizarlo así. Muy bien. Dime, Jorge. Adelante.
Thank you, teacher. Good evening for everybody. For me, it's important to learn English because it's the business language. It's the universal for traveling, for learning, for um, uh, to make more opportunity of jobs, and expand in the perspective to grow professionally. Um, for now, it's all I knew in this forum, and I hope to improve my conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm going to add a little question to the things you say that I think it's completely right. This is a question for all of you. Why, if you say that you want to learn English because it's the business language, why are you not learning Chinese? That's
Eh,
that's a question that all of you should be asking yourself. ¿Por qué
eh,
no están aprendiendo chino si lo usan por es el idioma de los negocios?
okay. Um, because in the countries, uh, Europe, uh, Asia, in Africa, uh, I listened that the language popular or more usually is in
Yes, definitely, it's the most popular, but it's changing. The thing is that, for example, some countries in Africa are starting to learn Chinese because they're doing a lot of businesses with Chinese companies. So this is changing, but it's something to reflect on. Pero bueno, luego, Daniel, quiero escuchar también a los que mencioné. Vamos a, vamos a limitar el tiempo de participación para que tengan oportunidad de hablar todos. Herbert, adelante. Y después de ahí lo voy a limitar a un minuto.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for share my ideas. And I think that it's important to learn English because they are part of the our culture. The popular culture is in English. In my case, it's very frustrating when I don't understand anime in English because One Piece every week is published in Crunchyroll in with subtitles in English. In the when I start learning English, eh, I see this anime thing is complicated. Understand this type of pop culture and the movies, comics, uh, all part of the culture is very important. Understand and try to read and see this part of the culture in English because it's our part of the community that we have relationships. Other part, why I don't study Chinese? I studied Chinese in the past, but it's important of the finance and my business in this moment. But I can't see in this moment movies in Chinese, right? Is is more central in English in this moment in the all part of the our culture and inclusive in the education. If you see in internet, you have you can see our page with the self learning self learning information, but it's in English. The communities of video games in Discord is in English. When you play Call of Duty Mobile in the server of United States with the Microsoft Activate, the people speaking English, right? Then it's very important this part because in the Latin American culture they have a relationship with the United States with the all community that is speaking English, right? It is my humble opinion reference for this topic, and thank you for the opportunity for share my ideas.
Yes, and I agree totally with you. That question that I asked about learning Chinese, it's kind of tricky question. You'll see why. Daniel, yes, you have 1 minute.
Just very quick. In this case, n- eh, 我学中国 I am learning Chinese since months ago, and in my case, I need to rehearse to practice more Chinese. So please, Melgar, if we can talk or something like that, because we need to practice. That's all. That's all. All right.
one thing that the idea of giving you only 1 minute is not for you to talk faster. It's for you to plan your ideas. For we're going to do this a number of times. I'm going to give you like a question, and I'm going to let you explain all you want, and then I'm going to reduce the time, so you practice reorganizing your ideas. This is a pretty useful exercise. Okay, Nicole, you're next.
Teacher, about the learning English is yes, is the universal language, and this is the first language you think you learn because it's the more usually in English help you communicate with the other person when you take a trip another country, and then can give you the opportunity to get a job abroad, and it can help you grow professionally, you grow personally, professionally. So yes, and facilitate facilita, facili, facilita, how do you say facilita?
Facilitate.
Facilitates the possibility to meet people from the other cultures and communicate better and help you in a productive way with your personal development. Um, yes, teacher, for for that. And
Excellent.
about the Chinese for me is the complicated learning because the words and the right Chinese is complicated. I don't know.
I thought that when I started learning Japanese, I thought that Chinese was so difficult until I not learned because I'm not learning it. I found out how words in Arabic are composed. That language is for crazy people. It's super difficult. I think it's the most difficult language I have ever encountered. So this,
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add something to that. Yeah, I agree with Nicole. I mean, I would say that learning Japanese and even Chinese is not that hard. Of course, it might be very hard, but I mean, it's not that hard, really. I mean, learning to speak or learning to understand Japanese, it shouldn't be half as hard as learning to write it or read it, right? I think you could learn Chinese or Japanese if you study and learn to speak it and to understand these languages. I don't know, in within 2 3 years of thoroughly studying it, you've been very dedicated to studying it, but writing it and reading, those characters, to me, it seems like an impossible task, to be honest. Yeah. And especially you said about Arab, and yeah, that's also, and also I was thinking about Sanskrit, or this alphabet that they use. Yeah.
Sanskrit, that could be quite an adventure. Very good, very good. Who else I told I want to talk. Okay, I'm going to change not the subject but the dynamic a little bit here. I'm going to give you a written exercise. I want you to answer this question. Write a paragraph about 3 or 4 word lines explaining why do you think English is a universal language. Obviously, you are up to say no, I don't think so. ¿Ok? ¿Está claro lo que quiero que hagan? Traduzco, escribe un párrafo alrededor de 3 o 4 líneas de Word, por favor, porque luego me ponen 4 líneas del chat. Entonces es como medio enunciado. Explicando por qué crees que el inglés es el lenguaje universal. Pueden decir que no lo es, pero argumenten su respuesta. ¿Por qué les hago esto? Porque varios mencionaron que es un idioma universal y quiero ver qué es lo que opinan al respecto. Jesús, yes. Estoy de acuerdo con eso, Daniel. El árabe, el húngaro, el polaco y el vasco son otro nivel de dificultad. Jesús, ¿andas por ahí? Es que no los quiero interrumpir, más bien no los quiero distraer. I want you to write your opinions, but I want you to read them, okay?
How long did you say it has to be, teacher?
I suggested like 3, 4 lines, not that complicated. If you want to do it longer, that's okay with me.
No, I believe I'm done here.
Okay?
If
I
that's
want
long
you to
enough.
read it. I want you to read it.
Okay.
Una cosa, perdón, antes de que empieces. Quiero que vayan leyendo lo que Alexander va a leer en voz alta. Ustedes vayan leyéndolo también. Adelante.
Okay, here I go. So it's because the USA gained the cultural, economic, politic, and military supremacy of the world. Um, well, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Because why the question is why? Let me read the question so that it makes sense, right? So, why do you think English is the universal language? Well, because the USA gained the cultural, economic, political, and military supremacy of the world. It might sound ugly, uh, but it's the truth. So, since this country is the ruling economy of the world, it makes sense that their language had been consciously or unconsciously chosen as the universal language. Also, I would say that another factor for his to be for this, I'm sorry, I meant here this, for this to be so is that English is relatively easy compared to other European languages and more so compared to other languages around the world.
Very good. I'm going to ask you something. You don't need to answer right now. If that's the case, why don't all the European countries conquered by Rome spoke Latin. Just think about it.
Do you want me to answer that? I could do it
No,
now, but
no, 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 no.
okay.
Just save it for
Okay.
later. Very good. Thank you.
That's very good. A
Uh,
very good question, by the way. Yeah.
I'm a historian, so I have to ask those questions.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Very
I'm
good.
kind of
Very
a
good.
historian too, by the way, but not
Oh,
totally.
cool. I love history. I did my master's degree in history, and I'm constantly learning. And Rome is one of my favorite time periods. So this is a very interesting question, but
I,
I want to know what do you
I
think.
speak a bit of Latin, by the way, just to let you know. Just to
Very
put that
cool.
there.
Yeah, we are not alone. There are some other people who still try to maintain Latin. Very, very cool. Okay, who's done? Nicole, Catherine, Catherine. ¿Dónde está Catherine? The rest of you, who's done? Daniel, please read it.
Okay, let me check this. All right. Yes, English became a universal language to UK and USA. Nowadays, we are witness about Chinese aviation arising at least with other countries where they are investing or trading. But if we have to choose a lingua franca for all, English is perfect by itself. French was a past lingua franca over the 19th century, but its influence has been limited by its complexity. Spanish has its chance past centuries before, but happened the same complexity. English is a romancing, or I didn't know how to explain, it's a romance language too.
Yes, romancing language. Obviously, this is talking about that it came from Latin. But yes, no, but I disagree with this. I don't know, I don't know, but I think that French, as a lingua franca, maybe because they had a lot of territories, a lot of colonies, but I would never say that French was a lingua franca in terms that 99.9% of English people from England, I'm talking about, never learn French. And now, one question, a general question here. Do you think that in your countries, do you think that what's more, people who speaks English or people who don't? What's more? You can write this in the chat so it's easier. In Mexico, I could say 50-50 or maybe 40-50.
Well, I would say there that at least in Latin America, yeah, I would say people who doesn't speak English is, I mean, in general, is the percentage would be very low. I would say people who do speak English, I would say 20% in all, taking into account all Latin America, right?
Yeah, when we talk about the whole continent, the whole Latin American continent, I think that could be less. I don't know. In Mexico, I would dare to say that 40% have some, let's be generous here, have like an understanding level of English. I mean, to answer,
Yeah, I would say
yeah, to
very
answer
basic.
basic questions, maybe not that they are fully conversational, but maybe.
And I think that's because of our native language, because there's so many people that speak Spanish. So in a way, let's say it's not. For example, let's take the Netherlands. There, I would say 90% of the people in the Netherlands speak English, advanced English, right? And that's because the country is so small and the language Deutsch, I think it's called Deutsch, is so, yeah, it's spoken for so little people that they have to speak English. That it's a necessity for them, for the country, really.
In addition to that, there are some countries, India, for example, who are opting for learning English because there are so many languages and dialects that it's becoming more and more confusing for younger people to speak all of those. So they're opting for English. Actually, unofficially, English is India's second language. So this is changing, obviously, but we'll see where it goes. Nicole, can you read, please?
It's a language that facilitates communication abroad. Since even if we travel to another country where it's not spoken, it is often easier to communicate in this way that in the local language. It influences so much in international business that it even becomes a requirement to know it. Personally, it becomes to change to learn a new language and many choose English.
Requirement. That's the way you pronounce it. Very good. Excellent opinion. It's often easier to communicate in this way than in local language. Last month in Japan, I can tell you that almost no one speaks English. It was complicated. Fortunately, I learned some Japanese before going, but almost no one speaks English, and they have no intentions of learning it.
Yeah, and I do think that I mean, with all due respect to Japanese people, when when they people who start learning English or so, they speak horribly. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to Chinese people, Vietnamese people who speak English at a decent level. They speak very well, but Japanese people, I don't know why. I don't know if it's the mechanics of their language or something, but they speak horribly.
You know, the main problem with them is that they don't have the sound L in their language. So it's super complicated. If you want a Japanese person to say line, linea, they cannot. They say line. And this is very confusing. But yeah, that's the case. It's like you said. I think you said best. It's the mechanics of the Japanese language. Very good. Um, Guadalupe, adelante.
Good night, teacher, in French. Profesor, disculpe, uno en ese club, ¿usted da los textos para nosotros poder hablarlos o cada persona se presenta con sus propios textos? Porque la verdad estoy perdida.
¿A qué textos te refieres?
O sea, le escucho hablar a mis compañeros el inglés y veo que están leyendo un texto o es un texto que
Ah,
usted les da para qué.
no, 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 no. Les hice una pregunta que era porque creían que el inglés era el idioma universal y quería que lo escribieran. No, ellos lo escribieron.
Ah,
Todos
ya,
tenían que hacerlo. Pero sí,
menos yo.
no, sí, adelante, hazlo, hazlo. No importa que uses el traductor. Quiero que vayas familiarizándote con hablar, ¿va?
Es que, profesor, yo, por ejemplo, estudio mi dúo y, bueno, no estoy tan avanzada como mis amigos. Y, bueno, usted dijo que buscáramos para hoy día 20 palabras y yo, bueno, busqué 20 palabras, como usted dijo, pero la verdad que con dúo estoy avanzando bastante, pero creo que todavía no estoy al nivel de ustedes, ¿ah? Para poder, entrar en este diálogo.
No te preocupes, aunque sea básico, aunque sean ideas simples, pero hazlo y vas a ver. Confía en mí con esto. Lo de las 20 palabras, sí, se los había dejado por hoy, pero como vi que varios no entraron, lo voy a pasar para la semana que viene para que podamos hacer la mayor cantidad de palabras durante la clase, ¿va? Entonces, si las tienen, no las pierdan para
Perfecto,
dármela seguido,
perfecto.
¿va?
Dijo,
Y como
yes.
te digo, si necesitas usar el traductor al principio, úsalo, pero fíjate en lo que estás diciendo para que se te vaya quedando, ¿va?
Ok, sí, porque tengo algunos errores en las pronunciaciones de algunas palabras y hago, bueno,
Para eso estoy, no te preocupes.
ya,
Eh,
teacher, gracias.
sí, in Mexico, I can testify and cooperate. Don't speak English was supposed to be used to the other positive Ago. Yes, when I was in LA, I felt that I was in Mexico. No one spoke English until I was very deep into LA downtown. That's interesting. And a lot of people from Puebla, by the way. I'm from Puebla, Mexico. Abel, can you read? ¿Puedes leer el tuyo, Abel?
Mm, Most of people speak English because it's the universal language. Too many countries speak them. English is one of the language that the most people use to make business.
Excellent. Very good. Jorge, adelante.
I think English is one of the most widely used languages worldwide. Possibly, I think so because I am poorly informed. However, I have seen that the English language serves as an intermediary language when you want to carry out commercial transactions. Most of the books that I have seen about the profession that I carry out are written in English.
Muy bien. Nada más al final. About the profession that I carry. I carry, entiendo lo que quieres decir, pero yo creo que lo cambiaría por, puede ser my profession. um, ¿Qué otra forma podría ser? The profession that I exercise, la profesión que ejerzo. Ujú.
Okay, thanks.
Y la última, that I, bueno, my profession that I carry are written in English.
Written.
Muy bien, excelente.
Thanks.
Muy bien, excelente. Créanme, yo les hice el comentario la clase pasada, sí veo como muchos están avanzando. Hablen, hablen, van a ver, se los aseguro. Es, yes. ¿Quién iba a hablar? ¿Alguien habló?
Teacher, I think we haven't heard to Catherine here. She already put her text here. I think she hasn't read it.
Catherine, es cierto, no lo vi. Adelante, Catherine.
Aquí ando,
Perdón.
esperamos a ver qué lo hice. Okay. English is the universal language because it's spoken by 67 countries and also is the second language of many others. So it's implemented at the professional level. So that means that many more people have to learn and achieve better jobs. And in the touristic area, it's very important to have this language. But also, I was talking about that with my husband because he is in Nigeria. He, of course, he works with a lot of people from a lot of parts of the world. And right now, in his this project, he is beginning a couple of months ago. All his co-workers are from India, and for him, he tells me it's so hard to understand them because he called me. He put the mute microphone. He's like, come," and I have to admit we laugh and it's like, what the hell are they saying? Because you don't understand. I don't understand anything, nothing, and they are the most. So between them, understand, and the rest is like, what the hell is going on? So my husband always in the chat like, hey, can you please make a quick resume what's going to say, just to be sure, just to be clear, just to be right, not to be rude, but basically say like, I don't understand you. And there's a lot of Russians and Indians and a couple of Americans. So my husband and the other Americans are the ones who are really lost every time they have a meeting, because the accent, I think it could be a barrier when you have a job in English. And that's not nobody fault, right? Everybody has, some of the country has a very strong accent, and is it make word have to speak another language, because when you have your own language and you have your personal accent, it's okay. But when you apply that accent to another language, it's very hard to understand most of them.
Yes, I think that the most difficult English accents that I have encountered are three: Indian, Chinese, and the northern part of London.
And I would add to that New Zealand. Oh, New Zealand is very hard to understand. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yes, I think that it's difficult, but I think I'm not generalizing, but I think that it's difficult when you talk with someone from a rural area.
Yeah, yeah, more so. Yeah,
Yeah,
also like Australian English. It's also like that from people from
yeah,
rural areas. Yeah.
yeah. People from the cities have a very distinctive accent, but you can understand more or less. There could be words. If you want to suffer in English, go to Scotland. I spent
Yeah.
2 full days before beginning to understand what they were saying. Muy bien, excelente. Hoy participaron bastante bien. Eso me agrada. Entonces, nos vemos el martes con las 30 palabras que les dije. ¿Va? Algunos de ustedes ya tienen más nivel en cuestión de vocabulario, entonces espero que traigan palabras que sean bastante complejas. ¿Va? Catherine, yes.
Profe, es que yo no pude ir a la clase pasada, entonces no sé de qué tarea se trata.
Sí, les pedí que buscaran 30 palabras que no conocieran. Probablemente algunos de ustedes las van a buscar y van a encontrar la definición o la traducción de ese momento, pero quiero que las traigan. ¿Sí? Como les decía, los que ya tienen más nivel de vocabulario, espero que traigan palabras interesantes. ¿Va? Bien, si no tienen preguntas, nos vemos a la siguiente clase el martes. Que tengan un excelente fin de semana. Cuídense y descansen. Estén muy bien.
Gracias.
Bye.